Well, hey there, guys. I'm Axel the Beast, and this is the Curiosity Shop, the ZeldaEngine.net video mailbag where I answer your Zelda questions. You guys got any questions? I guess you do. Our first question comes from the Legend Heroes. How come the Link in the Wind Waker was able to pull out the Master Sword without turning into an adult, while the one in Ocarina of Time had to? I actually get this question a lot, and that's one of the reasons I'm answering it now. I mean, I get this a lot more than most questions I get from time to time, you know? The answer to that is fairly simple. In Ocarina of Time, Link was the hero of time, sort of a foretold hero. They didn't talk about any kind of prophecies, but they talk about the hero of time like it was an existing thing that they were expecting or waiting for. And quite simply, he wasn't ready, he wasn't old enough, you know, he wasn't strong enough to be the hero of time yet. But he wasn't the hero that they were waiting for. And once he grew older, he was. Now, in The Wind Waker, the Link in that game was not a foretold hero at all. He had no affiliation with the Triforce or the Goddesses, and he actually had to prove his worth as a hero. And in that way, he's in some ways slightly more impressive than the one in Ocarina of Time, because he didn't have this thrust into his lap. It was something he had to decide to do on his own to save his sister. So, yeah. The Swedish guy asks, what is your biggest Zelda fail? Well, thinking about it, it's probably the fact that the entire first time I played Ocarina of Time, and even like many years afterwards, I didn't know about the trade sequence. I didn't know that the Pocket Cucko thing led into this whole trading side quest. I just thought it was the Pocket Cucko, and I could never figure out what to do with it. And it also, I never knew about the Big Oron Sword. Whenever people said Big Oron Sword, for some reason, I just thought they were talking about what was it called? The Giant's Knife? The giant sword that just breaks like a piece of crap. So, yeah, I didn't know about the Big Oron Sword or the trade sequence until, like, 2 years ago. Just 2 years ago. Ocarina of Time was my first Zelda game, and I never knew until 2 years ago. Awesome as crap, who probably can't be that awesome because he's only as awesome as crap, asks, what is your favorite and least favorite boss, not mini-boss, in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time? You know, I liked all the bosses in the game pretty much, or I liked most of them. I liked them all reasonably anyway. I'd say if I had to pick a least favorite, it would probably be Volvagia, mainly because as awesome as the creature was, and the music was, and the build-up was, it was just a glorified whack-a-mole battle. That's all it was. And I think that really didn't do the idea of this you know, really powerful, really dangerous dragon. It didn't do it justice, just smacking it when it poked out of a hole. That doesn't make sense. Aside from that, my favorite ones probably would be somewhat of a tie between Phantom Ganon, who was just an amazing unveiling, amazing atmosphere, just an amazing battle, and Bongo Bongo, which was a pretty cool end to the whole Shadow Temple big spirit in the well thing, although it is still sort of anticlimactic. I don't think there's a person alive who didn't complete the Shadow Temple waiting for the build-up into this awesome shadow demon monster, you know, waiting to see what are they going to do as the boss of this creepy dungeon, and then it's Bongo Bongo. Yeah, I don't know if I don't think there's anyone alive who didn't have a what is this reaction to that. But I still think it was a very cool battle, cool fight, and I think he's tied with Phantom Ganon for me. They're both undead, interestingly enough. The Lost Hylian asks, what do you think the chanting in the Fire Temple from the earlier versions of Ocarina of Time meant? Why do you think they removed it, and is it still in Ocarina of Time 3D? Sorry for so many questions. It's okay, man. My job here is to answer questions, and I hope, Mr. Hylian, that you find your way again, since you're lost. I don't think the chanting meant anything. I've seen discussions about it by people who actually knew the language it was supposed to be mimicking, and I don't think that it actually meant anything. It was just sort of gibberish, I think. I don't know any facts about that. It's just what I've heard, and I'd be willing to bet it doesn't mean anything. Chanting doesn't mean anything in the other Zelda games. So, as for why they removed it, I believe it was just a being careful because it mimicked certain cultures, I believe, holy chants. I forget which culture. You can probably find out by looking it up a little bit. And they just didn't want to offend people. I believe that the symbol on the mirror shield and the blocks was actually, the blocks you push, was actually some kind of Arabic symbol or something like that. Or Muslim, was it? I'm not sure. And they also took that out in a later version, the one that was released on the GameCube, because they didn't want to offend people. In Ocarina of Time 3D, it's the revised version where the chant is removed. So, yeah, that's all. Thomas117 asks, do you think that the whale in the Skyward Sword trailer has a connection to Lord Jabu-Jabu and or Jabun? Yeah, I do, actually. I think that the whale that we saw is Lord Jabu-Jabu. I'd actually be very surprised if he turned out to not be. At the very least, I think he's going to be heavily related, or, like maybe a predecessor or a related spirit of some kind, deity of some kind. They state that he's a servant of the goddess, and I just think that he fits so well with the theme of Jabu-Jabu, and that he's a good guy, and that he's related to the gods, and that, I don't know, there's just so much connecting it, and the fact that there are going to be themes from Ocarina of Time and Skyward Sword, and it's going to build up to what happens in Ocarina of Time, and we already have been speculating that those two deities, the Jabu-Jabu and the Deku Tree from Ocarina of Time, will be in the game. I just think it's too much to say it's not. That's what I expect. Carlbot asks, everyone knows that the last few Zelda games have been easy. Do you think that Skyward Sword will be more challenging? I sure hope so. I definitely do think it will be, and I also hope so. I like a challenging game, and that's why I play 3-hour challenges and now mostly minimalist runs in Zelda games, because I enjoy going through them again with more challenge. I think that they've definitely claimed that they will be that it will be a harder game, and not that that means anything, because they could be exaggerating, they could just kind of be wrong, But I do definitely kind of trust them on it. It looks more challenging, and I think that's a good thing. There's been evidence that some people have been able to get through parts just by flailing wildly, but these are early portions of the game that have been playable, and also, just because you can flail wildly and be cheap to win doesn't mean that if you actually play it, it won't still be hard. And I think most people will just try to actually play it. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if there's a cheap tactic you can exploit to have an easier time, because most real gamers, not that that's a really valid term, will try to have a challenge with the game. People who want to have a challenge can still have that challenge, and, whatever. If that happens, I don't see it being a problem. It'll still be a hard game. Alyssa asks, as a girl gamer and a self-proclaimed Zelda nerd, I always loved how Zelda looked in every game. I was always envious of her beauty and wisdom, but I'm disappointed by the looks of her in Skyward Sword. Am I the only one who feels this way? I have no idea if you're the only one who feels this way. That's your only question. I can't help you. I'm not everyone. As for my thoughts on it, I do like this new Zelda a lot. I'd actually say it's probably one of my favorite Zeldas, just because I think it's a more interesting design, and I never really found the standard princess look very interesting or appealing. One thing I think that's interesting about the Zelda is it's a unique design, it's a cute design, whatever, but it's also, it fits the kind of more humble beginnings that the game seems to be covering, the origin of the royal family. She still looks like some kind of like a princess you'd see in a Viking tribe or something, which very much fits the kind of like royal standing she has within the Skyloft tribe, not the Hyrulean royal family. I think it's a perfect look for this game. Not necessarily one they should emulate in the entire series. I mean, I think they should experiment with the design, though. But I think it's definitely a good design for this game. I'm sorry if you don't feel the same way. Mart Diamond asks, Nintendo decided to incorporate many signature gameplay elements from past titles, such as the Siren World, comparable to the Twilight segments from Twilight Princess, flying comparable to the sailing from the Wind Waker, and music that was also important to Ocarina of Time. All these elements were heavily featured in their respective titles. Do you agree with me that they are trying to put too much into one game? I don't know if I agree with that, because the way the game was designed from the ground up, it's obvious from the art style, it's obviously what they're going for, is it's basically taking Twilight Princess and the Wind Waker and throwing them into a blender and just into one game. So, I think that having the Twilight Realm segments and the Wind Waker, like, overworld are like a perfect way to accomplish that, aside from the art style, the swordplay, and the humor and, style that they're putting in the game. It definitely feels like a perfect combination of the two ideas, the two games, like, things they had going, while still keeping out all of the ideas of each individual game, so it's not like you just took everything in Twilight Princess and everything in the Wind Waker and put it into one big game. It feels like they are more compacting it into a unique game, taking ideas individually and picking and choosing ideas that go well together from each game. And they have said that the game will be packed with content, and it will be like a dense game, but it won't be particularly long. And I think that because of that, it's not exactly too much in the same game. We'll have to see, of course. I can't say for certain, but that's how I'm looking at it. Alright guys, that's it for this time. Be sure to send your questions to the contact page or email address in the description, and I'll see you guys later. Thomas117 asks, do you think that the whale in Skyward Sword